the history of Bad Blood.
Yes.
The first incarnation was In Your House, Bad Blood with 2 Ds, BADD. Don't forget about it. They didn't want you to. October 5th, 1997 in St. Louis, Missouri. Unfortunately, this was also the day Brian Pillman died. He died earlier that day. He was supposed to wrestle Dude Love at the event. It was also the last pay-per-view that Vince McMahon was a commentator, because the next pay-per-view after this was the Montreal Screwjob at Survivor Series. So this is, historically speaking, a pretty big pay-per-view for WWE. Brian Pillman, man. Just, God, what a talent, dude.
Yeah.
Just destroyed his body way too early.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, I hate it, man. And then you got the Montreal Screwjob right after this. You know, Brett leaves the company. Vince is no shot. Like, you got... Vince had played it perfectly up until this point, that he was just the commentator. He was the voice of WWE, but now, like, no, you run the show, bro. There's no... You can't hide behind President Jack Tunney anymore. You can't hide behind Gorilla Monsoon. Nah, you're the guy. Brett spit on you.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it. So this opened a lot of people's eyes in the wrestling. I remember being a kid and being like, what is going on? But we get to the pay-per-view itself. Nation of Domination defeats Legion of Doom in a handicap match to kick it off. This is D'Lo Brown, Kama Mustafa. You might know him as the Godfather or Papa Shango, whichever iteration you like of the guy. And a young Rocky Maivia.
Mm-hmm.
This was supposed to be Ken Shamrock in LOD versus Nation Domination, but Ken got hurt, and they made it a handicap match instead. Farouk interfered, helped the Nation win. This is when WWE was doing their gang wars.
Yeah.
They had Nation Domination. Unfortunately, this is terrible, but this is the match that they put up in place of Brian Pillman and Dude Love. It was a mini wrestlers match. It was Max Mini and Nova defeating Mosaic and Tarantula.
Yeah, I mean, again, some of these Bad Blood just...
Yeah, leaving a little bad taste in your mouth.
Don't age well.
Vince loved his little people wrestling in the mid to late 90s. Loved it. You remember Jerry Lawler and his 4 little people and Doink and his 4... He loved it, man. Next match, the Godwins win that tag team gold, defeating the Headbangers, who were the champs. Godwins lost the titles 8 days later to Legion of Doom, and then they would fall down the card and be repackaged. First is Southern Justice for Jeff Jarrett, and then, Midian would go on to play a big part in the Ministry of Darkness. Fourth match, Owen Hart defeats Farouk for the IC title. This was a tournament of sorts, and Ken Shamrock got hurt. Brian Pillman passed away, so this was just
free for all,
a crapshoot, because Owen and Farouk both had been eliminated earlier in the tournament. So they kind of were just like, these are the two. Okay, so Owen won the IC title. That would start the feud with Stone Cold, where he would end up breaking Stone Cold's neck, and that would catapult Stone Cold into the main event scene. Because this is also on the tail of 98. This is right before 98 when Stone Cold would become the, face of the world. Everyone knew wrestling. Mike Tyson, we're on the verge of that Royal Rumble casket match, Undertaker and Shawn, where he'd break his back, and that would lead him into WrestleMania, dropping the belt to Stone Cold with Tyson in the corner. So we're on the verge of big, big things. All those pay-per-view is a little lackluster. It's about to get good.
Yeah.
Next up, I told you Vince loved his gang wars. We got Disciples of Apocalypse defeating Los Pericuas. It was Crush's gang and Savio Vega's gang just duking it out. Bret Hart and Bulldog defeated. This is when they had the Hart Foundation. So, Bret, and he finally got all of his guys on the same page. Owen and Bret aren't feuding anymore. They're all on the same page. Bret and the Bulldog defeated the Patriot and Vader in a flag match. The Patriot, Del Wilkes, would disappear after this pay-per-view due to long-term injuries, and Vader would feud with Goldust. The main event of the whole thing, this saves it all. This saves the whole shebang. Hell in a Cell. Love that they've had a Hell in a Cell at every Bad Blood. Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels defeats Undertaker for the number 1 contendership to go on and face Bret Hart in said Survivor Series match that changed the face of wrestling. Kane debuted, ripped the door off of the Hell in a Cell, attacked the Undertaker, pulled Shawn Michaels over on top of him. This was the pay-per-view before Shawn was the guest referee and Undertaker Bret Hart, and I went to go kick Bret and accidentally kicked Undertaker. And this started this whole thing. But this would lead to Hart Foundation and DX ramping up. You know, this is the iconic, you know, Shawn Michaels with his, you know, got the Canadian flag up his nose, you know, Bret calling him a bunch of degenerates, the starting Degeneration X. The screw job was the next month. Then that casket match, the Royal Rumble, and just, man, laid the groundwork for a lot of, or it was in the midst of a lot of historical stuff. They would shelve it because they got rid of the whole in your house pay-per-view stuff after that. You would see it return in 2003, and I believe you watched this one today.
I did.
I'm looking at the card. This was a Raw brand exclusive. They had this was early 2000s. I had stopped watching the product at this point, and they had the brand split. I missed the initial brand split. Like, did people like it, or was it met with mixed emotions?
I mean, I was a kid, so I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I wasn't like on the web.
You didn't read the dirt sheets?
I wasn't reading the dirt sheets. I think I remember liking it,
Okay.
but I do remember...
That's the best part of wrestling as a kid, is if you like it, who cares?
I remember liking it, but I do remember being somewhat less interested at the time, like in the SmackDown pay-per-views for some reason. Like,
Okay, so SmackDown hadn't built itself up.
yeah, or maybe I just liked the Raw ones better. Raw felt more, adult, whereas SmackDown was a bit more...
I mean, seeing this list, if this was the Raw roster at the time, I'd probably be pro Raw too.
Yeah.
You know, so kicking it off, we get Christopher Nowinski and Rodney Mack defeating the Dudley Boys in a tag match.
Yeah, classic, Attitude Era pay-per-views where they just have a throwaway tag match at the top. I'm surprised we didn't see La Resistance on there.
I want you to look at this card. I wrote 03 and 04 Bad Blood side by side.
Probably the same card, just different names.
I want you to see how close this is.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
Up to where they put the IC title match and everything.
Right.
It's insane. Next up, Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner defeated Test. This was for the managerial services of one Stacy Keibler.
And maybe other services, apparently. Because, I mean, again, they were like... I watched this match. Good to see Scott Steiner. The way they were treating Stacy Keibler, she didn't deserve that. It was weird. It was creepy. And again, didn't age well, and it didn't feel good.
Yeah. It didn't feel
because they were like managerial services. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
And
the brainchild of Vince McMahon.
Jerry Lawler couldn't help himself. That guy.
Oh my goodness. His commentating in the early 2000s was brutal.
Yeah.
I came upon Divas Undressed not too long ago, and dude, they needed to give him a tranquilizer shot. Like, good God.
I mean, I remember watching, and they showed a woman in the crowd, and they were talking about one of the wrestlers, and they're like, he's a creature. And then they pan to this woman, and Jerry Lawler goes, speaking of creature, she's a creature. And I'm like, all right, dude.
Jeez, man.
And like, even Vince was like, what are you saying?
I like how Vince would put terrible people beside him in commentary to make him look really good.
Yeah.
Because Sean said some things back in the day, too, like, that I've been watching, and Vince is like, calm down.
Yep.
Booker T defeats Christian for the IC belt, but it was by DQ, so Christian retained his title.
Again, just...
What, he hit him with the belt?
I mean, I forget, but it just didn't feel...
Yeah.
It was like a match.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing here?
I mean, this was why Christian probably left.
Yeah.
Not too long after that. La Resistance defeats Kane and RVD. This was the final pay-per-view. Kane had his mask on.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, again, a throwaway match.
Yeah.
I hated La Resistance.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, Kane and RVD together, what?
I liked Kane and X-Pac together, not so much with Kane and RVD.
I just never liked when they tried to turn Kane into like a baby face.
He's a monster heel.
He's a monster heel.
He came from a burned orphanage. That man can never be a nice person.
No.
Goldberg defeats Chris Jericho.
Messy.
I mean, name-wise,
yeah, but
what are we doing here?
It was
It's 2003. Goldberg sucked.
It was a messy match. Yeah, Goldberg was signed for WWE, huge name, but he didn't really want to be there. They didn't want him there. And
no. Was this leading to the WrestleMania where him and Brock both pieced out?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was, they were trying to make use of Goldberg, and Jericho was a good person for Goldberg, but at the time, Goldberg wasn't playing well with anybody.
No. And this run is why a lot of people have that bad taste in their mouth. And also, it makes you appreciate how well WCW treated Goldberg
Right.
to hide his flaws.
Mm-hmm.
Because he soured quick.
Yeah.
Once WWE was like, no, you actually got to do the moves.
Exactly.
And they were like, oh, crap. Ric Flair defeats Shawn Michaels. This was an Evolution era thing, so Orton interfered. Cost HBK.
Pretty good match. Again, it was a little preview for what we would ultimately become Ric Flair's first retirement match, and it was a good match. It was a great match actually, and it just, oh man, just watching
two of the greats.
Two of the greats. And at the time, Ric Flair's a bit older, and he's still going. And yeah, I mean they are what makes wrestling great. The two of them.
My favorite run of Ric Flair's is obviously WCW Four Horsemen, like 90s. Monday Night Wars. That's my favorite Ric Flair run. But the more I go back and watch the time I missed, 2000s Ric Flair.
Oh, he was a madman.
It's amazing. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like it literally looks like he was like, I'm gonna die soon.
Yeah,
I'm going out screaming.
You'd watch these matches and you'd see him go against like Chris Benoit, but then somehow Ric Flair would win, and you're like, wait,
and he's just a bloody mess.
He's just a bloody mess.
His knee pads are down at the bottom.
He made the guy
raising the hand.
He made the guy submit with the figure four, and you're like, I believe this. I believe that little spider somehow could trap this lion. It's like you don't know how he did it, but you just
figured it out, man. I love it. And in the main event, I completely missed Kevin Nash's WWE run. So we get a Triple H. I didn't know he had a Hell in a Cell against Triple H.
It wasn't good.
Okay,
it was fine.
Yeah,
because he couldn't move much at this time. He was he was still big and top heavy.
I just don't think Kevin Nash and Hell in a Cell in a good stand. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I would want to put him in that type of match.
No,
maybe a tag match.
I feel like at the time they did it because of the name Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
And but it just
because they had just killed the NWO gimmick, for the second time.
Yeah,
because that was 2002, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure he still had some standing. Scott Hall was off doing Scott Hall things, so Kevin Nash kind of had to stand on his own at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be interested to see how old he was back then.
But it just was a stale match.
Mick Foley was a guest referee.
Very weird, yeah. And he ended up bleeding. He was bleeding all over the match.
Foley was? But you're the ref, bro.
Yeah, it's like, God. Come on.
Triple H comes out on top for what it's worth, That leads us into 2004's iteration of Bad Blood, this time from Columbus, Ohio. Again, a Raw brand exclusive. Random note, Sunday Night Heat would lead into the pay-per-views back then.
Yeah.
Batista versus Maven.
On Heat.
On Heat to lead into the pay-per-view.
Yeah, this was when Batista was in Evolution. He wasn't really, he was like getting...
They're starting to realize what they had on their hands.
Yeah. So they were like... Maven, they were turning into the monster, yeah. And the pay-per-view Heats always felt a little bit more of a big deal.
I loved Heat back then. Or not back then, but when it first started.
Yeah.
Because I
loved in Velocity, dude. A little Saturday Night Velocity.
Yeah. I enjoyed WCW Thunder.
Yeah.
Like, all these old random, like, it just has that
give us an hour of wrestling on Saturday nights. Why not?
Because then we'd be AEW. Here's your throwaway pay-per-view, or your throwaway tag match to kick off the pay-per-view. Benoit and Edge defeats La Resistance.
And at the time, Benoit was the champion.
Yeah.
World Heavyweight Champion.
Yep. And him and Kane are fighting later on, so Kane cost Benoit and Edge this match, so they win by DQ, so La Resistance keeps their tag titles.
Yeah, nothing about that match made sense.
Yeah. Jericho defeats Tomko. Tomko had Trish in his corner for some reason.
Did not like Tyson Tomko.
He's just one of those big dudes that Vince liked that could not wrestle in the ring to save his life.
Mm-mm.
And then here's the same thing. Third match in, IC title time. Randy Orton was a champ. He left the champ. Defeated Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah.
Which I bet that match was pretty good.
They should have given it to Shelton. It was a good match.
Next up, we got Trish Stratus in a fatal four-way match coming out on top. Victoria went in as a champ. It also had Lita and Gail Kim in there for the women's title. Look, that's three great women's wrestlers.
Yeah.
Like Victoria, completely underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Did her best work in TNA, really. Gail Kim definitely did her best work in TNA. She's probably the first knockout you think of when you think of TNA knockouts. And then, I mean, obviously the iconic Lita and Trish. So next up, I'm a little embarrassed to even tell this match. Eugene versus Jonathan Coachman.
Again, another.
What was Vince's obsession with this mentally handicapped character?
It was Eric Bischoff's nephew. Eric Bischoff's nephew
Oh my goodness.
was the story. And it was awful.
The only way this is okay if it was Eric Bischoff's nephew and he legit had special needs.
Eugene is what got me to start hating wrestling. Like, I got into wrestling and I was like, I had a great year and a half with it.
Yeah.
And then the Eugene thing, and then also it was Eugene and like Gene Snitsky.
Oh God, I hated Gene.
And I was just like,
Those I would check back in every now and then because I never truly like left, but like I didn't watch it week to week. But like I'd see stuff like that, I'd be like, nope, I'll check back in later.
Terrible.
Yeah. Benoit defeats Kane, retains the heavyweight title. They went down a weird road after this, with Kane being the father of Lita's baby and feuding with Matt Hardy.
Yeah, very weird. The whole thing was weird. I mean, and you know, the feud with Benoit and Kane, between Benoit and Kane, made no sense. That should not have been
I never in a million years would
Benoit's first feud. But again, back in the day, they were doing some really elementary feuds and storylines to
just
make
kind of putting them together for no reason.
Yeah,
not doing a good job of the why.
Right.
That's why I got so mad at wrestling. As they're like, well, because you know me, I need a storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So why are they fighting?
Exactly.
Don't just tell me they're fighting. Why are they fighting?
Right.
Oh, you're not going to tell me? Well, I'm not going to watch.
So it just felt like forced. I mean, Benoit's whole time. I was so excited when Benoit won the title. You know, you heard the stories of him working so hard, broken neck, all this, and then, you know,
some mediocre run.
Yeah, well, they didn't have any plans for him.
Well, that's the thing is, you know, like, it's cool to be the first small champ, but then you're going to see there's a reason why you're the first.
You're a transition champ. I mean, ultimately it led to the progression of the evolution story.
Yeah.
You know?
They had to have the belts for that story, though. It just makes so much sense. Because then we get Triple H defeating Shawn Michaels in this Hell in a Cell match.
The best match to happen out of Bad Blood.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this match, go back and watch it.
That is the only match I've seen on this card.
Go back and watch it tonight. The promo leading up to it.
It's up on YouTube.
I want to say the match itself, they allocated like an hour, 15 minutes to it. I remember watching it with one of my brothers in wrestling, Chase Sullivan. It was his first pay-per-view. We invited him over.
In wrestling, I like that.
We invited him over to watch this Bad Blood, and I remember it was that match where he goes, "Oh,
I get it.
Like, yeah, we know it's fake, but what?"
Yeah, and those are two of my favorites of all time. Man.
You know,
so I'm hyped to hear that they were instrumental in bringing him in. You know?
Dude, that match, and even I was just rewatching it earlier, and I remember I was like, "This match is epic," and I hit pause to see how much longer the match was. There was another 20 minutes left in the match. I was like,
"Talk about storytelling." They told a story with that match,
and that was their last match against each other.
Yeah, because they re-upped DX after that, and then Shawn had to go and retire himself. Which I'm just so thankful I got back into wrestling before he called it quits. Like, I barely got into it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I went over to a buddy's house and watched his retirement match.
I mean, it was so good.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. And then I checked back out for another couple of years because, like, my guy's gone. Who am I there for?
Well, and that's the great thing about wrestling is you can fall out of wrestling, but tune back into WrestleMania.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah. You know,
they will put on the show you are used to seeing. The epic, like, when you really think about it, WrestleMania is always delivered.
Oh, no doubt. Even those down years, there's at least something to walk away from and be like, I really like that.
Yeah.
Because think of how many, you know, going to WrestleMania parties over the years, how many conversations do you have with just random people be like, I used to be a wrestling fan.
Yep. Oh, I mean, that's what everyone says. Anytime you talk about wrestling, people are afraid to, A, still be a fan, and B, admit that, you know, they might still be a fan.
I think I said it with such confidence growing up that nobody messed with me. Like, Drew, you like wrestling? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, it almost, like, my answer almost made him be like, well, why am I not a fan?
Right. Yeah, like, why are... Yeah.
Like, if he's that passionate about it, like, why do I know? So I never got picked on for being a wrestling fan, which I don't feel like it's something to get picked on about. It's a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm not going around here thinking these guys are superheroes, you know what I mean? Like, thinking this is real, and, you know.
It was my family that was picking on me, dude.
That's fair.
You know, they're like,
it's scripted, it's not
they're like, give us the remote.
Yeah, my grandfather was pretty cool about it, but he'd just go into another room and watch TV.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not dealing with this.
I was like, you guys don't see what I see here. This is art.
That's what I love. It's so funny, man. For years, only wrestling fan in my family. For years. And now my brother and my mom are arguably bigger fans of me.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's the best.
Yeah. Where can they find you at, my man?
Dude, find me, Evan Burke, EvanBerke. Check me out. I'm online and on YouTube.
I'm online. Yeah, check out all the great clips that we put out. Check out our Instagram at Spandex Standups. Check out Drew Harrison Comedy. More importantly, just stay locked in with us. We got some great pay-per-views back to back to back. We'll see you next time.